Colonel Dame Kelly Holmes is a role model and an inspiration. She joined the British Army at 17, serving for over 10 years as a qualified HGV driver and physical training instructor. In 1988, she was awarded an MBE in recognition for her services to the armed forces. During a 12-year international career, Kelly won medals at Commonwealth, European, World and Olympic level, culminating in 2 gold medals at Athens Olympics in 2004 for the 800 metres and 1500 metres, which cemented her place in history as the first woman ever in Great Britain to win 2 gold medals at the same Games. She was honoured with a damehood in 2005 for services to sport. Today, Kelly is a global inspirational speaker, an award-winning author, an entrepreneur, as well as a fitness, wellness, and mental health champion. Kelly is passionate about raising awareness of mental health. Her own experience led her to learn more and to help others. A trained mental health first aider, she continues to be president of the charity she founded in 2008, Dame Kelly Holmes Trust, a charity which supports disadvantaged young people using the unique skills of world-class athletics to engage, enable, and empower, for which she won a Beacon Award for Philanthropy in 2017. In 2018, was appointed Honorary Colonel of the Royal Armoured Corps Training Regiment. Dame Kelly became the first person to be attached to a regular regiment as an Honorary Colonel, which was signed off by the Queen. In 2020, Kelly was awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of York, to add to her 12 others she has received since retiring. At the end of June this year, Kelly released her documentary called Being Me, an emotional and honest account of her time in the army and how only now she feels free to be true to herself. So please, will you give a warm welcome this evening for Colonel Dame Kelly Holmes and the host for this evening, me.
Hi everybody and welcome to Rockwater. So Colonel Dame Kelly Holmes, welcome to In Conversation here at Rockwater with me, Sophie Corbett. May I say it's an utter pleasure to be with you here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and chatting to us this evening. And I watched your documentary, Being Me. Who else watched it in here? I cried 4 times. It is so moving, so beautiful, so honest. And I really, really I'm going to go back to the documentary. But if you don't mind, to kick this evening off, I'd like to go back to when you were 12. Is that okay?
Oh, gosh.
You remember that?
Wow. No, not with a menopause brain.
Oh, babe, I'm so with you. I'm going to lose the plot right the way along, look at you blankly and go, what am I doing here? So age 12, you started athletics, and you were spotted pretty quickly. Was it a teacher who spotted you?
Yes, it was a teacher who I would owe so much of my career to for inspiring me, believing in me. Her name was Debbie Page, who happens to be a friend now, which is great. And yeah, she spotted me. I wasn't academic at school. I only went to school for PE, sport, and my friends, like literally.
Yeah.
And even though I was only 12, I think you can be quite impressionable.
Yeah.
You can look at everybody else, think, they're doing everything right, and you're getting into trouble all the time. It doesn't give a lot for your confidence. And then just running, it just felt me, and she encouraged me to do a cross-country race, which I really did not want to do. I mean, I was 12 with an afro. When it's winter, wet, cold, raining, and you're in apple catcher knickers. Remember those big blooming
big pants?
And an Air-Tex see-through shirt.
I think I might have some apple catchers on this evening.
White plimp soles in cross-country.
No.
Anyway, that was me. And yeah, she got me in this race.
It's amazing, isn't it? I love teachers that spot you and they see, that you've got a skill and a talent. So at 13, you won the 1500 metre for English schools. And so in between being 13 and joining the army when you were 17, were you continually training and running all that time?
Yeah, like literally, that became me, my identity from a very young age. So I do 2 rounds of paper round in the morning on my bike, because that was my pocket money.
Yeah.
I would clean windows, wash cars. I would bike to school because we didn't have a bus. We were 3 miles away. I was in a village, and
Wow.
my town was in Tonbridge in Kent, where I still live, and we didn't have a bus. So I'd bike to school, I'd bike to training, and then I'd bike back home, and that was my life. And I'd compete at the weekends, and that's what I did as a child.
Wow. That's a lot of exercise, isn't it? But you loved
It's
it.
a lot.
But when you were younger,
I
you
saw
don't
that
get.
face.
I was like, you don't get tired, do you? When you're young, you
No.
kind of just go like a little Duracell battery.
Yeah, I think, I feel I was quite lucky at a young age to have something that I believe is me. I don't think, unfortunately, a lot of youngsters these days know really where they're going for lots of reasons, because socially things have changed. But I think I
Yeah.
was quite lucky, even though people say, did you miss out? I'm like, I'm living my youth now. So no, I didn't miss
Fantastic. And why not?
out. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get there. Fantastic. And you joined the army at 17. At what age were you starting to think, I want to go to join the army, and why?
So when I was 14, we had careers officers come round. So they used to have careers officers in your local towns, but they came to our school, and they showed me a video of the Army, Navy and Air Force. So they showed the Air Force, but all they showed was the administrative side. And I was like, no, boring.
Yeah.
Then they showed the Navy. I couldn't swim when I was 14, so that was clearly a no-no. And then the army was these instructors that were screaming and shouting at all the other soldiers. And I was like, I literally wanted to be the one getting down dirty and the one screaming and shouting. It just, I don't know, something about it. I think that it felt like it was a purpose, as a career. You meet people, and
Yeah.
that was really what I got a sense of for the military. So I was in. I was in at 14, but clearly I wasn't. But I was in. I was signed up, ready to go.
And then you joined at 17.
Mm-hmm. I did.
And you were in the army for 10 years. And whilst in the army, you were also training in athletics.
So I gave up my international athletics career. So when
Right.
I was 14, I was also inspired by an Olympic Games, watching Sebastian Coe win the 1,500 metres. So I wanted to be a soldier. So
Yeah,
when I
okay.
joined, I wanted to do everything everyone else was going to do, because it's hard anyway, especially when you join your basic training, you're quite impressionable, you don't really know, it's all rules, regulations, getting screamed at. It's like, no, I'm 100% in. So, I gave up my athletics career, but because I was beating most of the guys, they realised I was a good runner.
Yeah.
And I was kind of enticed back into running through the army, but I still didn't go into anything major until I was a bit later, 22, 23.
But when you're doing that and you're in the army, to me, it's kind of superhuman, may I say, because it sounds like 2 careers in one. So what would your schedule be for that? I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah, so I went back into international athletics when I was 23 because when I was 22 they had the 1992 Olympic Games, and there was a girl in those games who I used to race against in Kent, and she's like in the Olympic Games, and I'm sitting in my barrack room. I'm like, oh, all right, that reigniting the fire in my belly, like, I used to beat her. So I got back into running. They encouraged me to do like a national championships, and they were at Crystal Palace, this national championships. So I ended up being announced as Corporal Holmes, that was it. I was just a soldier. I hadn't had a clue who anybody was. I remember this guy saying, just chase the 2 girls because they're going for the World Championship qualifying time. Didn't know who anyone was at all. I thought, right, just chase them.
Yeah.
I chased them, beat them, and qualified for the World Championships.
Fantastic.
So that was...
Yeah.
So that's when I was 23, and it suddenly just went into a completely different world. But I was very much a soldier first. I really loved my career.
You wanted to do it. Because in the documentary, it came across to me just how much you love the army and how much you loved your job. But at the same time, you couldn't be you. When I watched the documentary, I was utterly devastated, actually. And I thought I knew, I thought I was quite worldly. I obviously not. I was so shocked and heartbroken, actually, that when you were in the army, it was illegal to be gay. Mm-hmm. And people were imprisoned. Emma's here tonight from the documentary. People were imprisoned, their medals taken from them, discharged with disgrace. That's one of the times I cried.
Yeah.
And I just think, what must it be like living in a daily fear that you can't be you when you is perfectly all right just the way you are? How was that for you?
It was really hard. This ruling was right across the military, I must say that. So the Army, Navy, Air Force, it's quite across the military. I think because I really wanted to be in the Army and I knew this, you get told when you join, basically, that you can't have sexual relationship with someone of the same sex as you. It's kind of like a thing they say but not say, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You can't sit on the bed with... You have to have one foot on the floor if you sat on a bed with someone. Like, even if it was just your mate, just having a chit-chat. And given that you'd shared, so in basic training, I'd share with 3 other females, even if you were just having fun, like kids, because you're kids as well, if you remember, like young teenagers.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that. So there's these little rules that I suppose you don't really understand. You just get told them. But at the time I joined, I didn't actually know I was gay. I clearly was when I found out, but I didn't know at the time. So that sort of wasn't in my head, but I was very aware of situations that were happening. It was hard because you want a career, you are living your life being who you want to be.
Yeah.
But you're watching everything around you. You're overhearing your work. If somebody tips somebody off, it was like that. It was kind of like an unspoken language. So I joined the Women's Royal Army Corps. So basically, Women's Royal Army Corps. Is there any ex-military in this room as we speak on the podcast? A couple of hands have gone up.
Yeah.
So I was in the Women's Royal Army Corps. So basically, in 1992, they amalgamated to become what is known as the British Army now. Yeah. But everybody knew that most serving women were kind of possibly gay. Yeah. It was a horrible language. You were called a rack. So you were either screwed against the wall by a guy or you were gay. That was like the ingoing joke. Yeah, lovely. That was the ingoing joke within the military. So anyway, that's just what it was, because you have banter in the military as well.
Yeah.
I got on with the guys. I instructed men, mainly men. So I didn't have a problem with them. But I suppose as you start to meet people, in the military it was slightly different. I kind of never felt like I was having a relationship. I was just meeting people because you'd move every 2 years or something, have a bit of fun, and then you move on, don't see that person again.
Yeah, okay, so it's a moving thing.
But there were many occasions when I knew of and knew, because we had it, where you get raided. And raiding is, if you didn't see the documentary, please watch it because it is important, the messages. But so raiding is pretty much that the military police would come into your barracks and they would probably have some targeted people there, or be told they just want, a swoop, let's say, and they would come into your barracks and they come into your room. They would, and in my occasion, completely turn that room upside down. Your bed would, remember in the military, your bed's got to be perfect, your ironing's got to be perfect in your wardrobe. They would pull everything out of your wardrobe, literally stamp on it in front of you, pull out the beds, throw the beds out the window or outside in the corridor, in my case at that time, pull out the drawers, tip everything out, look through every single thing you had. It was humiliating, degrading, embarrassing. It was everything, it's just, you just stand there like...
It's traumatic, actually.
Yeah, all of it, because they're invading your privacy. They are just literally treating you like dirt, and at the time, the thing is, again, in the military, which is on the good side of it, you get tipped off a lot of times. Not always, in some people's occasions, but sometimes you get tipped off, and a couple of occasions we had it, we got tipped off. So what you do is, even if we'd been best friends from school, you wrote me a letter, and back in the day, it was letters, not texts. Might have Love Kerry. So my best friend from day one at school, who was also my doc, would write to me, and my sister Lisa would write to me and put Love Kerry. Like, even that was scary. So I'd put all of those in a box and you'd go and run in and put it into somebody's boot of the car. So everyone before they came in would like just do a swoop, and it wouldn't be necessarily, you might not have even been in a relationship.
No.
Or anything. It's just
but
that
you
any
think
connection.
They're going to read it, they're going to read into it,
Yeah.
and you're terrified of that.
Yeah, because in some cases that has happened. People have had maybe long distance relationships, had relationships with people back at home, may have thought about the fact that they might be gay, might have spoken somewhere. Any little inkling that you may be or may know of would be interrogated. I got left off easy, really. I mean, I got away with it, let's say, in those occasions, but it doesn't stop traumatising you, because you then worry about every single movement that you make. And having wanted to still be in the army, that was the hardest thing, because I wanted to be a soldier, I wanted to be good.
Well, I can only imagine that people that are in the army really want to be in the army, because it's a
in the
certain way of
military,
living. And I suppose when I'm only again imagining that when you're in the army and it's all happening, but it's actually when you maybe step away, you realise the trauma it's given, or the fear that you've been living a slightly fight or flight more often than we kind of should be.
Yeah, I mean, you do, because you're still doing your career, and that's the most important thing to you, and that's why you're in. So most of the time, it's not even an issue. Like I say, it's sort of a unspoken language. You knew who was gay. If you wanted to go out to a club, everyone would drive in a car and go to a civilian club somewhere down a town, going to London, or Slough was one of the occasions we went to, all pile in the back of a Mini, 7 of us, just to get out to this Slough club.
Law-abiding,
really
7 in the back
club.
of a Mini.
Which really wasn't a good club. We'd go there just to get out, because you're young, you just wanted to be you. But then you go back into barracks, and then that sort of separates, and the conversation is when no one else can overhear. But I sort of didn't really think about it too much. It was just when those things happened. But then on the same sense, you're getting promoted. I was in charge of a gymnasium, in charge of like regiments, physical training, so you're put on a pedestal in one side, but actually could be... That's really good for the podcast, just saying.
Yeah, there you go. We're very dog-friendly here in Rockwater.
Was that a Rottweiler or a little one? We've just got to get their voice right. No, joking. So it was kind of like, your head's in two.
If you subscribe to a fabric of life coloured by the sea, subscribe to Open Water from Rockwater for exclusive performances by international recording artists and world-class musicians, celebrity talks and stand-up comedy, to film screenings by firesides, well-being workouts and beach-bound meditation. Open Water gives you exclusive access to the best that Rockwater has to offer. Played out over 3 floors, just a stone's throw from the water, with remarkable food and drink experiences for company. To find out more, contact the team today. openwater@rockwater.uk. Open Water, made by the sea.
I suppose for me, that was one edge, but also at the same time, within my career, I became an international athlete. As an international athlete, no one spoke about being gay. There was no role models. I didn't know anybody in athletics. I know now of Navratilova and Billie Jean King, but back then I didn't know them. We've got Whoop in the back of the room here. I didn't know them, so I had no role models in sport either.
No.
So I'm a soldier first and foremost. I've kind of catapulted in the world of sport.
Yeah.
I go out and do my sport. I go and win a medal, then I'm coming back into barracks and guarding a barracks with a weapon. So in my head, it was like, well, I can't say anything in that world because no one talks about it, and I'm still in a law that disallows me to talk about it. And that law didn't lift until 3 years after I left the military.
No.
By then, I'm also a world-class multi-medalist, Olympian, world champion, European, all of those things. So I felt enabled to then, because the law was still in place when I became a full-time athlete.
Yeah.
I got my MBE to services to the military. I'm like, well, I can't tell anything now, can I? And every step of my journey was, I can't say anything now.
Absolutely, because everywhere you went, no one else was talking about it. Mm-hmm. That's why, I'm going to say it over and over again this evening, I'm just so grateful for what you're doing now. Because it does take a lot of bravery. It really does. To be vulnerable. It's not easy being in the public eye. Number one, that's a roast, and to be so open and so vulnerable and honest is only going to help other people be able to also be open and be vulnerable. Because let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, we all hit moments of vulnerability, and we all feel we can't show it, and we need to show it. That's what I feel. So, and moving on, my next question, thank you for that. It's a part of your life where you did have a struggle. So you've spoken so openly about your mental health and your struggles and challenges, and there was a particular point in time that I'd like to talk to you about, if you don't mind. In 2003, you went to France to train for the 2004 Olympics, and you'd had injury issues before you went to train, but when you went to train in France, you got injured again, which was very painful for you. It was a very bitter pill to swallow. So what happened there, if you don't mind me talking about that?
No, not at all. So I had been, by then, an international athlete as well, including in the Army Air for 11 years. So I'd won multiple medals. But if anyone knows my sporting journey, it was off the back of a huge amount of injuries, like really bad injuries, ruptured calf, torn Achilles, glandular fever, tonsillitis. Had numerous tears in my calves and damaged femoral nerve, like so many things. And as an athlete, and your body needs to be pristine to race at a high level, every injury is like a stab, like a blow, because that's becomes your life.
Yeah.
You have to be right at the top, and that's so intense, both physically and mentally. Anyway, I got to 2003, I was 33, I'd been to 2 Olympic Games, struggled to get through those, but did. I got 4th at my first Olympics, getting pipped on the line, having run with a stress fracture at those Olympic Games. I'd got 3rd when I was 30, thinking I was ancient, wish I was back there now.
Yeah, absolutely.
After only having 6 weeks of training due to a calf tear, but I got there, got a bronze. 34, I thought this is going to have to be my last games, so everything's going well. I've changed my training environment. I was living in South Africa. I was training with one of the best athletes in the world that I'd been also a competitor of, but in a different discipline. And I thought, right, I'm totally focused on my next couple of years. And I went to France, got another niggle, and I just lost it. Literally thought, I keep going highs and lows. In sport, they're so dramatic, but you don't ever really think back then of the impact emotionally, because everyone talks about getting fixed. If you're with a physio or masseur or somebody, they're treating an injury, but they don't treat the turmoil that's going in your head, thinking about your opposition are out there being perfect. The press, the media putting you down all the time, the expectations that everyone has on you because you are known in the world of sport that you should be raising. No one ever spoke about that, and I maybe didn't even realise the impact it had on me. I had an injury, I just fight to get back, so it's very tense. I didn't think of the bigger picture. It's like here and now. Anyway, basically, cut to the chase, I was in holding camp. We were, I think apartments. My coach and my training partner were outside, and I lost it. I looked in a mirror in a toilet, hated everything about myself, hated how I looked, how I felt, how I was, put myself down so much, saw some scissors on the side, started cutting myself for every day I'd been injured, running the tap to, kind of get rid of the screams that weren't screams, because the screams were inside me. People call it black dog, black cloud, black hole, whatever you want. I wanted to jump in that black hole. I wanted the room to close up. I didn't want to see tomorrow. I really was in a bad way. But of course, at the same time, I was actually getting ready for World Championships. That's why we're in France. The World Championships were in Paris. So I'm still trying to, outside of that door and that toilet, become a world-class athlete in my attitude, in the way I was, because you don't want other people to see a vulnerability in you, especially at that level.
Yeah.
You don't want your coach to feel that you can't make
maybe a
it,
bit
or your
wobbly.
training partner.
Yeah.
You don't want to put them down because they've still got to compete, and you don't want your opposition to ever know that you're, you know, not 100%. Yeah, I lost the plot basically, but I still won a silver medal at those World Champs, and that was literally at the lowest point.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you reached out. Did you get help? Did you, or did no? No, you just.
I didn't know how to.
No.
I went for Massa up in the mountains. I broke down on the table. The physio thought she'd hurt me, and she called like the, called the doctor in, and the doctor in broken French, because clearly I didn't do much at school, didn't chat much, gave me these chocolate kind of herbal calming pills, which didn't have drugs or anything. It was just herbal calming pills. But in my head, it's like, yeah, but I can't take nothing, because I was so anti-drugs, like so anti-drugs.
Because you
so
thought
it
would affect your training.
Well, I didn't know what they were. I mean, I know now they were just literally chocolate flavour, which I love chocolate. I mean, come on, but chocolate, herbal things. But I didn't take them. No. I couldn't reach out to anyone else because I didn't know how. I didn't know even what I was. I didn't know the word depression. I didn't know what a breakdown was. I didn't know what I was in. I was just in it. So how do you then explain that to someone when
you don't understand it yourself?
Yeah, and you're still at the top of your game. Which is probably one of the worst things that I did, because I think talking is so important. I do think sharing and getting somebody, even if they're not so close to you, but somebody outside of it who can help sit. Definitely. The one thing she did say to me is that I did try to explain to her how much it meant to me, and she went, but you're still here doing it now, because I talked to her about all these injuries and setbacks and worries about what people thought of me again. Because I had this, what you have to remember is in the back of my head, I still had the whole, I'm gay, I can't talk, I'm a world-class athlete, no one knows. I had all that going, which I didn't express to anybody, of course, until now. So I had that, as well as being the sporting injured person. So I had two really deep things happening that I couldn't talk about.
No, you couldn't air.
No. So that was a really hard period of time. And, if I'd done it differently again, of course, I would have wanted to talk to somebody.
No, because I said, what would you say to Kelly now, as you sit here now, if you could sit her down in 2003, what would you say to her?
Well, I had some great friends, I've had friends that have been friends all my life, even since I was 4, so it's kind of, I'm close to people.
Yeah.
I have a really good, close family network, which
I
really
know came across in the documentary.
And I know I'm very lucky with that. But I just couldn't. Your mum would go, oh, why are you doing it? My mum wasn't sporty. Why are you doing that? But she meant it in a good sense, because she wouldn't want... Every time I was injured, she was like, but I think she thought I was just too old. Or, give up now. Give up the ghost. She never got my mentality anyway. But I didn't want to burden them. I didn't want them to worry, because I was still going to do it. I was still going to try and race.
Yeah. And if you're used to keeping it in...
Yeah.
It's like, as you said, you've been the best avoidant of answering questions for 30 years. When you're used to it, I'm so glad you're not this evening, because that would have been a nightmare for me.
Can you imagine?
When you're used to it, you're used to it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of what you do. And when you were training, just for me, because I have no idea, and I'm sure guys here tonight don't either. So when you were actually training, what is a training schedule? What? Because I'd really love to know. Because actually, it's painful.
Yeah.
And it can be really isolated. And isolating, because it's you every morning. You have to get up and go, right, come on, Yeah. And your day would be.
Well, as an individual sports person, it is very isolating and quite lonely. You go away training camp, your coach may or may not be with you. It's not like a team where you've got someone picking you up at different times and helping you through the down days. It's you. Leading up to an Olympic cycle, you'd have like a winter cycle. You'd have maybe then a few days off, a week off. Summer cycle, so it's broken down into like 3 blocks almost. Training for me would be 2 or 3 times a day, very intense. Being a middle distance runner, it was speed endurance, so really high lactic acid type work, and then very limited recovery. So you'd literally be in bits. Your legs would kill from lactic acid. You feel like you're dying on the track. Then you've got to get up and go again. It's that sort of intensity. Then coupled that with gym and weight circuits because I was injured a lot. I had to adapt my training to be in a gym, so stepper, cross training, so stepper, bike, aqua jogging, which is putting a buoyancy aid vest around your waist, and you go into a pool and you simulate it's a bit technical, simulate your training in a pool.
I'm there.
It'd be hard because it's wake up, you've got your train. So my coach, you'd have set me, you remember Olympics is a 4-year cycle, and then every year you have championships. Changed now because they're ridiculous, the programmes, they've gone world champs, Commonwealth Games, European champs, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
But you'd have a 4-year cycle that would include European champs, world champs, Commonwealth and Olympic Games. You would then have to break that year down into the 3 kind of clusters of training. You'd have a championship that you're getting ready for every year. You have a national trials, and then you have Grand Prix or Diamond League, Golden League as it used to be called. So everything is about the 4-year plan, but every year you still have to be focused because you might not get there in 4 years. So it's every here and now. But that day is then morning. Your day is broken down to when you have to train, the ice bath, your physio, your eating habits, your sleeping, then to the minute detail of the schedule for your training, the recovery, the seconds recovery. It's like such detail.
It's intense
to run as fast as you
it?
can on one given day in a diary. I mean, what people forget is when the diary is set for a calendar year and they have a championship, that final is set on a date. They don't wait for you. You don't say, oh, I've got a little niggle. Can you just move it a couple of days? So everything is on that one date in the diary. If you're not ready, tough.
And you've done all that work.
And it can be, no one sees the behind the scenes. No one sees all the tears, blood, sweat and tears, literally.
I know that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Documentary, filming the lead up, the training, what actually people do to get there.
Olympics is great because they bring that across, I think, a bit more, the coverage now to bring sort of behind the scenes of athletes a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing that, coupled with the fact that people have families, some have children, your relationships. You've got a lot more, you've got life going on at the same sense of trying to be this elite athlete. And
well, in the documentary, what really struck me too is when you spoke to the 2 boxing girls that are partners, but they said, how have you done it? Because they said when you're training, you cannot have anything bugging you. Your mind has got to be clear.
Yes.
And they were like agar at you because you've been going through your battles and not being able to come out and go, this is me. So you had that going a bit, and then you still pulled it off. They were like...
I know, because so different.
You are superhuman, Kelly, you are, honestly.
No, I'm not. I'm just some crazy...
You are superhuman.
So, no, it is very different. That's what sort of astounded me during my documentary, the people that I spoke to, how life is very different now. You know,
which is...
It's really important to me to kind of show, one with the military and one with young people living today and in sport, that it's very easy when time moves on to kind of forget the historical impacts that people have gone through. And it is really good to move forward. And I absolutely believe that moving society forward, getting generational change is very important, of course, because we don't want to have these conversations. We just want everyone to live, and we deserve to stand side by side with everybody in life who are decent human beings, forget where they live, whatever. But it's quite important to me, having done the doc, that one, if I went back to the military side of it, that people remember the struggles, like Emma and other people, that they went through, for those that have lived post-SPAM, which is from 2000, and living their life very free, very happy, very lovey-dovey, and it's all great. But they're only living that life because people have lost their lives, who have lost jobs, careers, struggled, families. That's why they're living their life today. And I think it's important that you recognise that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you can't forget that, because you should be grateful for what you've got, not to be going, oh, whatever. But I think you should remember that, because people that you do meet in society that are walking around, you might not know that have been in the military, you might not know what happened to them, but they are still living to this day, suffering because of that. So I think it's important that one of the things for me is that message comes across. And equally in sport, Sport's a
Yes.
long way to go still. There's
Yeah.
still 11 countries that ban being in the LGBTQI plus community, and it is illegal and you get a death penalty still in some countries. They're competing at international world-class level. People at the Commonwealth Games, that would definitely probably gay or whatever you want to call. I'm just saying gay is a very broad term.
I watched. Did anyone watch the Tom Daley documentary? And It's Illegal to Be Me. I mean, I think I was so shocked because my godfather was Danny LaRue. So to me, it's I'm like so shocked. I was just like, and watching also his documentary, and when he walked out with the flags at the end. I mean, but it's just we've got to do everything we can to change.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go.
We've got a long way to go because it takes 9 generations to outweigh a negative. And that's with people making an effort. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's make an effort and pass it on to our young ones. But it does take time.
It does, but then you see, I've got 10 nieces and nephews, and they're like, but, they just live their life, everything's normal. They don't have an issue. It doesn't even occur to them. I had 3, 4, 5, the older ones. So 5 of my nieces and nephews come into my documentary because I thought, I said to my brothers and sisters, they have to come. They're aged 11 till 16. I never sat down with them other than one of my nieces who, on the way down to Brighton for a day out, I just told her I was gay in the car. She's like, all right. That was... There's a big build-up to say, am I allowed to actually tell her? Will my brother really have a go at me for, exposing myself to her, given he's known all his life? But no, she's like, well, and, great. That's brilliant. The kids these days at a school, it is absolutely normal for them to know about everything in the community. I'll say the community, again, as a very generic word, community. I think that's wonderful because actually then we will stop stigmatism, we'll stop hatred, we will realise everyone is equal to a point that they're, as I say, decent human beings.
Absolutely.
And that's brilliant. But so you've got that sort of younger side. It's maybe for me the sort of 20, 30-year-olds that are living in that middle section.
Yeah, the middle pocket. And also it does depend, doesn't it, where you live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, we're living in Brighton, but then you suddenly go somewhere else and it's a different story. Then it's not Brighton, is it?
Well, I grew up, as I said, in a small village in Hildenborough, Kent, and one of my fears for doing my doc and coming out was that I felt like I couldn't walk around my village or hometown if I come out. I feel like, oh my God, they've known me, so many people have known me since I was young, and I felt like, I don't know what the word is, but I just felt like in that, if I go anywhere else, I felt that I'd be okay, but inside me, I'm computing people's thoughts and language. I don't know, I think I was preempting that they would look at me completely different, having supported me for so many years.
Yeah.
That's very irrational fear, but it was
one
I had.
Is often irrational, isn't it? And we build it up and we get terrified, and then when actually we do the frightening thing, it's never as bad as we think it's going to be. But that's very hard to remember.
The funny thing is they've just had Tunbridge Pride, the first one ever.
Yay!
There you go.
There we go. Tunbridge has got pride.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to my little bits of paper because it does all make sense. So we're going to go back. Can I go back to 2004 Olympics? Because I've watched the 800 metre over and over and over again. And when you entered the final lap, you were 7th out of 8th on the field. And looking, it was superhuman. Again, I'm calling you superhuman, but you were. You powered past each athlete, and I'm sure we would like to know. I was thinking, when you're powering past them, what are you thinking? Can you remember what you were thinking, or you're just thinking, run?
A little bit like that.
Because it was mad. It was, you were back, and you just, on the final lap, and you won gold.
I know.
I know.
I know.
And
I still do
Oh
think...
my God.
I actually watched them back as well, and of course it's now what? Oh my God, 18 years. I have a big issue with age. Those that follow me definitely know I have a big issue with age. So, yeah, I'd run for many years, as you know, and you get one good thing about being in sport for a long time and being older, you have experience. So I'd got to know my opposition. I know how to race, say, 800 and 1500.
Yeah.
Leading up to those games, I didn't actually know I was going to do the 8 and the 15.
No.
I kind of did it at last minute, thinking, I'm in the shape of my life. First year in 7 years, I hadn't been injured. If I come back with 2 medals of any colour, what a great end to a career, because I've kind of preempted that I might finish. I don't know. I didn't really have a plan.
No.
It was always the aim. And, so I changed my tactics, actually, for those races, for the whole 6 races of those games, because I decided that in training this is another thing in training, you have to mimic training. And this is the same thing. So if you are into sport, and everyone gets so nervous about their race day, whether that's a park run or even if you're walking, people get worried about the day they've got to do something where all eyes are on them. Well, why you go out for your walks or your runs every other day, it's just another walk or run, really. You know, these people in sport get so het up about that end thing. So what I'd learned to do is every part of my training was to run as even pace as possible for an 815. So those that are into athletics, that means if I was doing an 800, break it down into 4 200s. Each 200 needs to be the same, because then it's but at the speed that I want to potentially win the race in. So in my head, having had all the experience, I wanted to run 1 minute 56 seconds for 800 metres, because I believed that would get me a medal. So in training, we had to practice what that would take.
Yeah.
So I took that training focus into the race and just raced how I had trained for days and weeks and months.
Yeah, your muscle memory of...
It just became like clockwork, because, of course, you train. Why do you train? To perform.
Yeah.
It's like if you do a job or you do anything in life, you know, how do you get better? Because you keep doing it. And when it becomes repetition, if you all sit at your job and you thought, oh, God, how did I get to here? You know, if you actually go back to work or whatever you do and go, how did I actually learn how to do this? If you really kind of give yourself some props instead of putting yourself down and think,
absolutely,
how did I get to do here? It's because you've learned it. You've done it over many times. You've learned the highs, the lows, the bits went wrong, and then you can just do it. It's the same in sport.
Yeah,
do it.
And you did it.
You've just got people in your way that kind of like really, piss you off. They're kind of like tripping you up, getting in your way, slowing you down. So you have got that in sport, but essentially as a world-class athlete, you know how to perform. It doesn't always go its way. Somebody else does it better. There's only one winner. And on the day, so many things can go wrong. So it's like literally so tunnel vision, focus, minute detail. Don't overwhelm yourself. Run how you've trained. And if you get it right and you're the best on the day, you'll get it right.
And you did. Won. You got it. You won 2 800 metre and 1500 metre.
Mad.
Amazing. So when you come back to London, well, what was it like on the bus with 80,000 people cheering you?
Oh, mad. Yeah, so I had a homecoming parade. Can you imagine, like, little village. Bus was parked outside the scout hut. You know, come out my mum's house, and I was living in her box room in a little council house, you know, and then I'm coming out and all the press are camped out on the verge outside, and it's like, this is weird, you know.
It's like, freaky.
Yeah, and then I'm coming down sort of the main village and there's an army tank sitting outside the pub. You know? Like, what is this? It was so weird, because I'd sort of left England 3 weeks before to go training. You know, when I left, everyone was just going, good luck. You know, kind of good luck wave, and that's it. When I come back, it was like I was this pop star. People were jumping out of
it was mad.
Cars, stopping the cars in the middle of the road, like jumping out at me, hanging out of windows. Up poles had changed Hildenborough to Kellyborough. You know, it was it was like crazy. And I had all my friends and family on the bus as well, so that meant a lot. And my PE teacher, Debbie Page. Yes.
Oh, I love amazing teachers.
Yeah,
I mean, it is
too.
such a responsible job. Mm-hmm. There's a wonderful speech, I wish I had it to play, when somebody goes, oh, you're just a teacher. And this person goes, just a teacher. And then that's all I can remember. But it was very powerful, because they are the people that make us. those people that believe in us, that see you for whoever you are, and you know, I'm quite passionate about teachers as well as talking and things like that. On to my next question.
I believe it takes one person to make a difference in life. So that could be you talking to your colleague who you've noticed that something's not quite right, or your friends or your family, and you ask the question, not "Are you okay?" Because "Are you okay?" gives you everything. I notice something's wrong. Do you want to chat? You don't quite seem yourself. I'm here if you want to speak to me. That can make a difference to someone's life, let alone just their day.
Absolutely.
Same as a teacher helping you, you know, be better. But anything. I've always believed that. That's why I started my charities.
That's the end of part 1 of our chat with Dame Kelly Holmes. Stay tuned for the next episode as we talk more about fitness and her coming out in the documentary Kelly Holmes, Being Me.